Good evening, everyone. My name is Advait Kurlekar. My colleague here is Eklavya Malhotra. As always, a lot of new faces every time. So my job is to introduce who we are and what we do. Both of us represent a consulting company called Apohan Management Consultants, and we've been organizing these sessions called Between the Lines every month. Format of this session typically is that every month we identify a book that we believe is a good book to read. Most often it is a book that has been recently published, and my colleague Eklavya reads the book, assumption, and presents or talks about the book in terms of a summary. This is not a book club, this is not a book review, this is not a book critique, it's a summary. So for people like me, without reading the book, I know what the book talks about. And if you like what is the book and the discussion, then of course, you can buy the book, and luckily for today, the authors are there, so you can take an autograph copy as well. This part of the program is not sponsored by Amazon or anything like that. So, and then every book has something to take away, every book has learnings, and therefore, depending on the topic of the book, we invite people from the industry, and I moderate a panel discussion on the topic. And we've been doing these events for some time now. So today is the 104th such event. So we've been doing it for some time now. So thank you. We've been lucky maybe about 18-20 times where the authors of the book are present like today. And therefore the format slightly changes. So while Eklavya is still going to do a quick summary of the book, first part of the panel discussion will be just a conversation with both the authors about the book, and then we will invite the other two panelists and then talk about cyber security. And today is a big day. I don't know what these people have done, so we'll talk about that as well. Probably. So first of all, thank you for taking time out on a Friday evening and deciding to spend 90 minutes here with us. Before I forget, I have to thank our partners, Rohan Builders, National HRD Network, our gift partners, and I'll come back to that in the later part of the day. And of course, Red Brick Offices for giving us this venue and being a gracious venue host. So give a big hand to the Red Brick team as well. Thank you. So over to Eklavya.
Thank you. I'll keep this very short and hopefully sweet because I don't need to do this anymore. Today morning I've received an email from a Nigerian prince. I just have to deposit 5,000 rupees and some 30,000 pounds will be transferred to my account thereafter. So I've done the needful. I'm just awaiting to receive the transaction SMS from the bank. And then it's a warm goodbye from me to all of you. You know, the first time I actually received one of those mails 20 years back, I was so convinced about it. That was the happiest day of my life. So, cybersecurity. I think I don't actually need to speak anything today, right? Given what has happened, what has transpired in the last few hours, I think this has become probably a self-evident, self-manifested topic. It's almost like the stars have aligned and all that could go wrong has actually gone wrong so that we could have a wonderful discussion on how that happened and what that means for companies, for businesses, and also for individuals. But this particular topic on cybersecurity has been brewing for quite a while now, and it's been a few months, and I think you would all recollect that recently there was a lot of news about the Maratha Chamber of Commerce signing an agreement with the US consulate. I think that's the first of its kind in India, where there is a cybersecurity initiative, a joint initiative, which is powered by the US consulate, which will be in terms of collaborating with the industry and over here in terms of, giving the necessary knowledge, the tools, the kind of exchanges which are required to make businesses more cyber resilient, more aware of the threats that loom large. And in light of that initiative and all the stupendous work that has been happening within the local industry in Pune, particularly with regards to cybersecurity, this whole topic has actually assumed a lot of gigantic proportions in the last few months. Actually, not just last few months, maybe the last few years. It was not too long ago, I think, when there were those few days, I think, when the entire East Coast in US was reeling under some kind of a cyber attack, and people were actually going around getting fuel in those plastic bags and transporting them back home to fill their vehicles, fill their cars. And then I think a few days after that, or maybe a few weeks after that, there was the Irish National Health Service, which was also adversely impacted by a cyber attack. Quite a few years ago, one of our clients in MIDC in the Pirangut area was subject to a ransomware attack. I think for about 40 days, they had to stop all production, including the exports, the domestic supplies. And that was, I think, one of the first instances when we came in close contact with the reality of cyber attack, because frankly, cybersecurity is a joke until it isn't. And I think that's how most of us tend to look at it. I think that's something which probably a lot of us have not really paid attention to, even in our own personal capacity. Forget about the professional space we operate in. And again, this is something which I believe has only been coming into the limelight over the last few years in terms of the splendid awareness that has been sort of propagated through different forums, different media vehicles, and so much talk has happened about it. But for a layman like myself, for a lay person, it still usually is Greek, Latin, and binary code. That is until we get a book, the likes of which Rohit and Alok have penned down, Cyber Resilience, a strategic handbook for businesses, for CEOs, for professionals. And that does a great job of demystifying and breaking down all that we read about, all the jargon that we come across, which frankly is not always easy to comprehend if you're not from that space. It makes it easier to understand what exactly is the threat or the risk which is at large over here, and what are some of the preventive, proactive measures that can be taken by industry in order to at least try and delay the inevitable. And I know I said delay the inevitable because, as the authors have also penned in the book, it's not a question of if, it's more a question of when. It is going to happen. No matter how tech savvy we might consider ourselves to be, I'm sure all of us have come across instances in our own personal life, in our own social circles, family circles, of people who generally, one would assume, would not fall prey to such cyber attacks or cyber scams. And unfortunately, they have been the victims of that. And the same holds true for businesses also. So it's not really a matter of are we really prepared for it or do we have our defenses up? It's also a matter of how much knowledge do we have regarding what's really coming to get us. Because again, knowledge is perhaps the first line of defense, as they have so sort of, articulately put it across in the book. If you don't have knowledge about cybersecurity, about what it means, breaking it down into simple, easy to understand terms and measures, you really aren't prepared for the fight that lies ahead. And it is a real fight, because today, in this day and age of a hyper-connected world, everything that we do has a technology interface. It's not just limited to the laptops and the desktops where we are operating from. It's all the other devices and gadgets which we use so freely, where we share our information, our data so easily, without a second thought, without realizing that there is so much at stake over here. I think it really hit close to home a few years back when I think Cosmos Bank, there was that nearly 100 crore scam which happened. All the debit cards that were cloned and used across multiple countries in the space of 6-7 hours, totaling up to some nearly 100 odd crores. That was basically the theft or heist which happened. And as recently this year, as I think one of the first examples which they've also shared in the book is Dell Technologies, where so many user accounts, user information was compromised. And I'm sure that all of us in the last few years would have received an email either from a Zomato or a Dunzo, or Domino's, or PNB, somebody or the other intimating us that kindly change your user credentials, login credentials, because unfortunately there's been a data compromise or a breach at our end. And that's why I said it's funny until it's not. And that's what this book essentially spells out in terms of what does one do in order to be prepared for this kind of a cyber attack, and in terms of really understanding that there are certain things which are basically deterrents, which are proactive in nature, and then there are certain things which are reactive or responsive measures, and both have to be looked at in equal measure. So it's not just about saying that we have the best security architecture that's possible, or, like for instance, we often hear that we have everything on the cloud now, so it's all backed up, there's nothing to worry about. As they go on to explain in the book, that itself is a big myth, which most of us probably don't understand. And when I say most of us, I would also include business leaders in that regard. We just, like Advait and I were at a client site about an hour ago. And again, why I said that, cybersecurity is funny until it isn't, because both of us were chuckling when we heard from this client that they had some massive 100 TB hard drive or something, and they're basically into a communication field, and they prepare a lot of these creatives and artworks. And they said that half of this was reserved as a backup, like as a backup partition, and the other half was the operational project drive. So we were just trying to understand from them that how does the backup process work, how does the archiving process work. Then one of them remarked, oh no, this was 8 years ago, but then we were falling short of space, so we just formatted that backup drive and now we have the full 100 TB at our disposal. So then we asked the next logical question, and what happens to the backup? He said, no, whatever it is on the machine only right now, so there is no backup anymore. And this is one of the leading companies in that space, not just in Pune, possibly in Maharashtra, and now getting into a pan-India mode. And I was shocked. And again, like I said, it seemed hilarious that people can take your entire, cyber hygiene. I won't even call this cyber security. It's just good housekeeping, which is not taken seriously enough. And that again is one of the things which in the book they have spelled out in terms of the key questions that you should be asking if you're a business leader. What are some of the key things or imperatives that should be on your radar if you're actually serious about tackling this issue at hand? And it all begins with simply trying to understand that what is the governance framework that we have today? And I know again that governance and compliance, these are looked upon as, the evils within any business. Nobody likes to pay too much attention to them. They are termed as headaches. But a governance framework or an IT governance, a cybersecurity governance framework has to be, even if you regard it as a cost, it has to be regarded as the cost of doing good and safe business. And that is often something which we overlook. We look at any kind of compliance as an unnecessary expense, as unnecessary, toll on management bandwidth. However, any company which has undergone something of a ransomware attack or a malware attack or some kind of a phishing scam or any other data breach would testify that it is better to be prepared than to take reactive measures and then call in the likes of Rohit and Alok to clean up the mess that gets inevitably created when such an incident takes place. So there's a lot of things, again in the book, one of the, I would say the easy and lucid style of writing lends itself almost to an anecdotal chronology of, how do you really set up these systems in place? So without getting into the technicalities of it, because I'm sure that's something which Advait would also like to touch upon when he interviews both Rohit and Alok. But suffice to say that it doesn't come across as such a daunting task when you actually follow this playbook. And I would say more than a handbook, it's actually a playbook because it lays down step by step, sequence by sequence, easy things that you need to be monitoring and things that you need to be implementing. And all of that cumulatively should be your first line of defense. Now the thing is, again, the reality often remains, like they've also quoted one of the people in the book, that if you're spending more on your coffee budget in your office than you are on cybersecurity, you deserve to be the victim of a cyber attack. And that is the reality, because that's how lightly normally we tend to take it, right? And then something like today happens when everybody's up in arms, against what transpired, and then there are a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of hypotheses being floated around. without too many people really knowing the reality of what happened. And I'm sure that is one of the first things which Alok and Rohit would be able to enlighten all of us. But at the same time, can all of this be avoided or mitigated? Because that's one of the first things in risk management. 90% of organizations, when it comes to risk management in the cyberspace or in the IT domain, are actually comfortable with accepting the risk and moving on. And that's the truth. How many organizations do we know, mid-sized, I mean, forget about the smaller enterprises, but even the mid-sized enterprises, which actually have a CISO role? So the general tendency is that we accept the risk and we live with it. Or in some cases, it might be more about like, okay, we try and do something to avoid it, but active mitigation is something which very few organizations dabble in. And those are the ones that are actually much more resilient to any of these incidents which are bound to take place eventually. Now, if something does take place, how do you respond to that? And what is the role of each stakeholder involved? That itself is also laid out in terms of a prescriptive manner in the book, which is in terms of incident monitoring, incident response, the entire set of activities. Because also, let's face it, we read about maybe 3 or 4 such incidents that take place usually, in a quarter or in a year. I think we can all be certain about it that the actual number of incidents must be at least 10, 20 times. Because today, unfortunately, there are no disclosure laws also. I don't think there's any disclosure law which compels organizations of all size and scale, irrespective of the nature of industry they work in, irrespective of the fact whether they are a vulnerable entity or employed in the government sector. I don't think there's a single blanket law which forces organizations to disclose the kind of attacks that they were subject to and whether they were successfully mitigated or not. So in reality, the number of cyber attacks and everything else that takes place is probably at a much higher number. It's just that it doesn't often make it to the media outlets. And that's why we are okay to live with that uncertainty. That's why most organizations are okay with embracing the risk and moving on without giving it a second thought. And that's again something which through the book, it is spelled out very clearly that what are some of the major and minor things which you need to look at if you're thinking about setting up an IT governance framework. So what are some of the non-negotiables that you need to incorporate? What are some of the practices which you need to institutionalize? And what are your defenses that are available to you? And what are the pros and cons of each of these sort of lines of defense? Because very often, we've also seen this, that companies talk about having this cyber insurance and everything else in play, and they feel that that is good enough to indemnify them against anything which might happen. But you really cannot be indemnified against the reputation loss. You really cannot insulate yourself from the breach of trust which takes place when an incident of this sort happens. And that is why today data or data sharing is no longer a buzzword as it used to be earlier. Now it is an act, it is a law. Thanks to GDPR and other associated laws, today companies have an obligation, and it's not just a sense of obligation, they have a legal obligation to safeguard the data of individuals like each of us, and similarly, in turn, as business professionals, as business leaders, all of us also have a similar obligation to discharge for customers, for suppliers who are transacting with us and who are entrusting us with their data. And if that sense of obligation is treated lightly or without the kind of respect that it deserves, then again, we probably are deserving victims of some kind of a cyber attack. And with all of this in place, what is the role of the CEO at the end of the day? How do you effectively collaborate within the industry to ensure that cyber awareness and cyber resilience are no longer things that are just confined to pockets of excellence? How do we make more and more employees aware in the organization that just because you receive that cute GIF of a cat which is inviting you to click on it, You need not do it within your domain of the organization. Do it at your home when you're in your home network if you really have to. And all of these are real and looming threats because there is a clear and present danger which often goes unnoticed because, again, it doesn't get reported enough, it doesn't get the share of voice it probably requires. And that is why it's more and more increasingly important that at least we know the basics of what is at stake over here. And are we able to at least take the minimum steps which they have, so sort of succinctly articulated in the book. And again, we often do such kind of book summaries where at the end of it, I talk about how it was a light read, about how it's going to be an enjoyable read. This is nothing of that sort. And my apologies, I know Rohit and Alok have dedicated this book to me specifically, and they have. I'm sure they will tell you all about it, but they have dedicated this book to me, and I think to some of you also perhaps. But it is not an easy read. It is a serious read. It's not a fun read. It's a somber read. And at the end of the day, at least for all of us, I believe it is a must read. And to understand more about what went on behind the book, and perhaps to get some more insider dope on this industry and the way it is built or the way it is being executed, over to Advait for the main feature of today's session, where we'll be talking with Rohit and Alok. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Eklavya. I think, Rohit, I think you can accept that he's read the book, yeah? Okay, so that makes it one more. So please join me in welcoming our two co-authors, Rohit Srivastava and Alok Karnik. So quick background, I think they are college buddies from Symbiosis, business partners and now co-authors. They run obviously a information security, cyber security kind of consulting company. Rohit is a fellow charter member in TiE Pune, but very rarely we see him. I see him more on LinkedIn and on YouTube videos where he's speaking in Dublin and God knows wherever on variety of topics, or he's busy like today since morning. I'm sure you are busy. So one big round of applause for both of them before I start. So before we start talking about your book, can one of you please explain what happened today and exactly what happened today?
We just have one mic right now, they're just getting more mics.
Okay. First thing first, today is not a cyber incident. It has nothing to do with cyber security.
So nothing to do with gas.
Nothing to do with, we didn't do anything. I really say we didn't do anything for the day. But yeah, the point is it was not a cyber issue. It was not a security issue today. Now we do understand that, okay, there was something wrong. A lot of outages happened. There is a cybersecurity company involved in that, some mistakes from their side, but still not a hack. At least as much as we know of today.
So what is BSOD?
Okay, I'll come to that. There could be one, so in cybersecurity world, we have a very good habit of bringing a conspiracy theory to everyone. Last week, Kaspersky, the Russian antivirus giant, was formally out of US market. They cannot sell anymore in US market because of the geopolitical reason. So you can create a conspiracy theory here that Russians did something with CrowdStrike, which caused this kind of a damage, which caused such a downtime. And if it happens, it will be a really amazing, interesting news to read maybe after the investigation is done. But as of now, it has nothing to do with cybersecurity. So first thing is out.
Casper.
Yeah. So again, that has a catch, but not, still nothing to do with it.
We are not associated with that. Just because it says gas, it is that much. This is not working, sir.
So this CAS and that Kaspersky has nothing to do with.
So let me ask you about the book. Take us into the making of this book, the back-end story of the book. I mean, book can't happen overnight.
It did.
Okay.
Pretty much it did.
Tell us about the story about it.
So-
How did it come out?
Hello. Yeah.
One of the main catalyst, as we say in a nice word, or culprit, as we say in the wrong word, is sitting here with us. Dina pushed us that, okay, we need this kind of a book. And we were already working on it. No, we need it quickly. And that's where the story starts. So, Dina, you will hear this one now.
So besides the catalyst here, the reason is we see a lot of these vulnerable assets in the industry. Okay, and these vulnerable assets obviously belong to people, to organizations. There are two main reasons for this. One is that the companies have security controls, but they are not deployed or configured correctly. Second reason is that it is not there itself. Why? Because the management has not spent time and resources to put them into the environment. So both ways they remain vulnerable. The first one is resolvable by talking to the IT team. You know, they are happy, okay, make this change, it's done. The second method depends on management. Management doesn't understand certain cybersecurity risks and they don't feel like spending that, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, whatever their budget to resolve those risks. And to explain these risks to them in a simple solution, in a simple manner, is why this book was written in a language that is understandable by business leaders. Not just business leaders, professionals, new entrants to cybersecurity people to cybersecurity domain as well. Also non-cybersecurity people as well. Now in cybersecurity, absolutely, Aam Aadmi, Pineapple Aadmi, every kind of Aadmi, and Aurat. So that is the whole logic behind writing this book and keeping it simple so that everyone can understand and benefit from it. मैंने कुछ नहीं किया.
Yeah, but what kind of effort went into it? How much time?
Okay.
How many versions, manuscripts?
Okay. Sure. So from the time of file new document to printed book in hand was about 29-30 days.
Wow, that was really overnight from book publishing perspective.
After that, we didn't realize कि night क्या था, day क्या था. Because we have literally written this book throughout the day, throughout the night. And in between having all our meetings, all the work is happening, all our client visits are happening, everything is happening. So in between trips to clients, we are discussing ये chapter किधर है, वो chapter किधर है, all that's going on. He went on a vacation to Goa in between, and in that vacation, I am ruining it for him and his wife and the kids. अरे ये अपना इसका ये करने का है, this chapter should be reread and editing करना है इसका. So he will not stay awake at night. I'll do those honors. So I'm awake till 5:30 in the morning doing all this. 8 o'clock we'll have a call in the morning, finish the edits. I'll sleep off for some time. I can get up at 11, do some more edits. Again afternoon call. Evening then he goes out because otherwise you know the reason. You know what will happen.
After troubling him on his vacation, are you still welcome in his home?
The price is still being paid. The price is still being paid.
Okay. And how many versions went there?
So, why? Because, and in book publishing world, we know that if we have to go through a proper publisher channel, the idea is they would ask you for the first 3 chapters of the manuscript, give it to them, and don't call them for next 6 months. If they like the book, they will come back to you, and then the book publishing process will start. That happened with my first one. I attempted all of that and said, boss, we cannot stick with that. One of the big reason is when Dina, me and other people started this Maratha Chamber Indo-US initiative of cybersecurity, we wanted this book to come out for people's benefit. And even one of the bigger reason was the ambassador of US to India, Eric Garcetti, he was visiting. And that was like the deadline. Okay, tab tak book haath mein honi chahiye. So that we can give it to him, we can show it to him. Some time zone and some other issues happened. We were able to give him the soft copy, not the hard copy, but the soft copy was ready and we gave it to him. The whole day and night stuff as well, because I am the one whose phone goes into do not disturb at 9:30 in the evening. I cannot handle it after that. And he's a nocturnal one, Nisachar Praviti ka insan hai. He would stay around the night and manage things in that time zone. But then book had to be completed. And SMA, why do you have to go on a vacation? No, that was also part of the other activities. My son decided to do a summer camp in Manipal, so we have to, and we do not take any other mode of transport in the country. We just drive from Pune to anywhere in the country. We just drive. So we chalo usko drop karne ke chale, we will drive through, and because we cannot drive directly to Manipal in one step, we said okay, we'll take a hop at Goa and then go. So that's how Goa becomes a vacation. So both the kids are in the pool, me and wife outside the pool, me on the call, and she's like, "Kar lo, tum yahi kar lo pehle." And after many of these, she also knows how it goes. Being a business partner, because she's managing the money of the business, she understands because this is an important part of the whole game. So that's where it all went out. And then the whole manuscript and versioning, it was actually one. So let's use cloud at that point of time. We had just one version of file online, being edited live by both of us. With our time zones and other stuff, we would just dump content into it, restructure it. So much so that part of the content, or the majority of the content, is coming out of the experience. So we don't. It's not like, oh, this book will take a lot of time because we have to go into that kavyatmak mode and sit down and write some nice words. This is all coming from life experiences.
So no writer's block.
No writer's block there. So it was ready to go from the get-go. Some were life experiences and some were live experiences. There was one topic in a chapter we added because in the morning we had a client call and we were like, why is this CEO not understanding this? So we said, okay, let's make it into a topic and put it into the book. So it was on that mode. So one live file being edited on a desktop and an iPad and on a phone at different places. At one point of time, wife was driving and I was on the laptop, I was on the iPad and editing the document right on the moment. Because again, it is more of dumping out your own experiences and what is not going good with people, and can we write about it so that people can get learnings out of it and maybe start inculcating that into the business. So that was the main methodology.
But in all this, you did have backups.
Oh yeah, our backup mechanism is because walk the talk, we have our methodologies which are in a right shape. And
One question I always have when there are more than one author. What is this? What does co-authoring mean? How do you decide who writes what? How do you manage the language, the harmonization of the style of writing?
Co-authoring means bullying the other person when you want your topic to go in the book.
Okay.
I myself have put three chapters of the book in there, and I said, Rohit, ye jaane wala hai.
I'm not ready for one of the topic, and
Any more details?
he said, I'm holding my breath until you allow this chapter to go inside. And he said, sitting on this chapter will go. Okay, let it go. So it's more of bullying each other, but again, the point was, without this particular topic, are we covering it in a nice way? Or is something missing out? So we had that as well.
And why didn't you want to wait for 6 months? Is it because the content would have been old? Even the
There was this deadline with
deadline of
Didn't give a deadline.
that is his deadline.
okay.
But yes, not even that. The idea was there's nothing going to be very, very different if I spend even 1 year on the content. And it's not a time-sensitive book, it's a matter-sensitive book.
The point is we have to start somewhere, right? So we took this one small step, and if you see the chapter of the book also, they are sequentially arranged in a manner that, you know, there are questions that your business leader will ask you. Like, why should I do this? Why should I spend money? Everything is a why.
Now, one more thing is, you didn't mention about your first book. The first book, if I remember, was more on personal security kind of thing. You focus this on enterprise security. Why do you feel? Because, you know, at personal level, home Wi-Fi, password will push 12345 0000. But I believe corporates have firewalls and, you know, complex kind of things. So, why is it need for enterprise security?
We would love to believe that. But the reality is not. So basically, the first.
Yes.
So the first book, which was 2019, which was published in 2019 with the publisher and all of this method, was more of outcome of, or other answers to the question people in my friend network used to ask me. Hey, should I do this on my phone? What should I configure? How do I make myself secure? What do I do? What do I do? So that was more of a B2C answers in a book format. That's also a guidebook. That's more of a game book. You can keep scoring yourself with every step, and at the end of the book, you can calculate your score. That was all months and months of knowledge which somebody would call me on the phone and say, how do I do this? Now I say, read my book. This is copy paste same thing in a B2B domain, where a business leader would ask, oh, should I? Should I not? When? Why? Sir, everything is written in the book. So none of these are like, okay, fancy stuff coming in. This is real life practical scenarios. And we were amazed, and we have been in the industry, it's like 22 plus year for me and similar for him because classmates. So what you're saying is we feel that, yeah, this is a common sense. People would go ahead and do this. Many a times forget about medium or small scale industry. Even large companies do not follow all of that properly or religiously. And that's where the problems start happening. We have heard about large data breaches happening in a big company. And then the official statement will come, this was a sophisticated nation state attack. If you have to complete the sentence, the full sentence from our side would be, this was a sophisticated nation state attack because the attacker was able to guess the password of my database, which is admin at 123 with a A capital. That would be my full sentence to it. People have done those kind of mistakes. And now, whenever something has to happen, a business leader has to do something, everybody is looking at it as a cost center. Cybersecurity is a pure cost center for any business. So they feel that, oh, the IT guy is still here asking for more money. Should I put in? Will he be able to do it? What should I add it? So those questions. And my guy is telling me, but what the rest of the industry is doing, let me just check that. And then it becomes a secondary or a tertiary priority thing and people go into their regular business. So the idea was dump everything into that one book.
On that note, on the financial side, there was recently one of our clients, they had a approved budget of 2.3 CR for a cybersecurity thing. And we were like, this, it doesn't take this much. And we literally cut it down by almost more than 60%. And they were pretty happy about it. So point being, in cybersecurity, we have this thing called 3 pillars. So people, process, and technology. If your people are competent, your processes are robust and resilient, you may not have to spend that much on technology, right? So that part also is there. And there are so many other high-sec controls you can put on your endpoints and servers, whatever, that are free. It doesn't need much of investment. So even those are not deployed properly. We talk of firewalls, right, just now. Even firewalls are bought, but they're not configured correctly. There'll be like an any, source inbound any, and destination any rule. Very often.
So you have a security guard asked to allow everyone.
So it is that way. That's the analogy. So if everyone's coming inside your office, then why are you paying the security guard?
But again, since you called it a game book, you mentioned as a playbook. If you have to score it based on your consulting experience with your clients, what would be the lowest score and what would be the highest score? 100%. It won't be anybody 100%.
So the way we operated, we have this risk sheet where we have some 200-300 risks there, and we take the company through that journey on analyzing those risks at various levels, endpoint level, server level, user level, etc., etc. Now in there, what we do is they have a score that comes out of it. We have clients that have started with 10 single digits, 8-10%. After 2 years now, they are at what, 93-95%. On the flip side, there are others who have started at some 30-40% and have reached 45%. So not much. But there is a slow, progress there. And there are 10,000 reasons for this to happen. Internal politics, finance, let's not go into that. But yeah, to answer that question of scoring.
Okay. One more question I have is, since you've written a book which is like based on life and live experiences, will this book act as a final kind of thing for security consultants like you? Because if I read the book and play the book and kind of thing, then do I need consulting?
I'll be happy to do that. Let people start doing that. Once that happens, the secret part of the business is once that start happening, business will boom because people will come with valuable questions. Then we will be actually doing the cybersecurity work. Why do I say that? Because some of our clients, and I'm not sure 100, but more than 30% of our client, our main work is not security management, is HR management. Our client, large aircraft manufacturing company, 4 divisions: global IT, global security, local IT, local security. Our work is to sit in between, take data from one, give it to another, because there's so much of bureaucracy, they don't want to talk to each other. That's not security management, that's HR management. We have one client where the IT head is childhood friend of the owner, MD. So he cannot be fired. And he works out of his whims and fancies. This guy was bothering me a lot. I will not do his work. Boss, the work for the company is getting stalled. No, I will not do. So there, our role is, iske kandhe pe haath rakhe, kar dena yaar, it's okay. That's not cybersecurity management, that's people management. So if companies start maturing at some level, it would be easier for us to do. And then we can actually do security work than the people management kind of a work. But yes, even if that doesn't happen, even if there are people who take the book, read the book, and they are like in a much better shape, we'll be happy to see that, because that will make the overall posture better for the company, overall posture better for the country.
And before I call in other panelists, one last question about the book. What next? Personal हो गया, enterprise हो गया. What next?
अब सीधा global, the cosmic security has to come in. दो काम में इधर हो गया, B2B हो गया, B2C हो गया. B2G, we cannot write it in a book. We consult 3 different countries on their warfare and other stuff. So that cannot go into a book. इसके बाद तो सीधा
G.
but from the book front, major thing is covered. We don't want to, and I'm not coming up with my second edition of the first book and stuff, because it's a real difficult thing to do at work. First one was single authored. This time I got a scapegoat कि चल किसी से कुछ तो काम करवा के हो जाएगा. And then he got a scapegoat कि तू कुछ तो करके देगा मेरे को. Finally, together we were able to get this guy out. But yeah, if beyond this we go into a book, one of the ideas is not for a book format, but one of the thing which we have started working on is making an open source standard which companies can follow to be secure and create their own scoring. The kind of risk sheet which he spoke about, it's a Google sheet with us right now. We are expanding on it from a global level, that companies just look at that, do what is written. If there are good team members, you can do it yourself and improve your score. That should be good.
Thank you. Big round of applause. Now, let me invite our other 2 panelists. I'll start with Mr. Sanjay Katkar. I'll just say 3 things about him and you will know the entire thing. Co-founder, director and CTO of Quickheal. I think that's good enough. And last but not the least, Sridhar Shukla. Again, 3 things: GS Labs, K-Point and IIT Trust Lab. So, thank you so much. And he also was on the board of Persistent and as a CEO as well. Okay. Still have one mic, so we try and manage. Yeah. So, Sanjay, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. Here in Pune, everybody knows about Quickheal, but people may not know about the background history. So, when you and Kailash started this, give us the background in terms of why did you decide on this? And for us, in layman, Quickheal, I remember the ad, हमारे PC में क्या है, virus या Quickheal. So, tell us about Quickheal story.
Yeah. So basically, if you want to know how I started or why, the thing is, I never thought about taking this and making this big when I started. Actually, it was all about, I was doing my bachelor's degree, and I started facing virus challenges in the lab itself while practicals, and that was something that generated my curiosity, like what is happening, why the half of the lab is not working, or why we are missing on practicals. And at the same time, when my elder brother was doing his workshop, he had a workshop of computer maintenance and repairs for, because that was the early days of computers in, it was like, I'm talking about 1991. And so I thought of doing practically in his office. And I used to see many a times his computers were also down. And the maintenance, the computers used to come for maintenance, and he used to say, हार्डवेयर में तो कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं, सब कुछ ठीक चल रहा है, इन्होंने भेजा क्यों है? एंड ही यूज्ड टू से, वो तो फ्लॉपी ड्राइव इज मेकिंग नॉइज, एंड द फ्लॉपी, वी यूज्ड टू यूज फ्लॉपीज, एंड the boot virus used to do such an activity that the head used to keep on moving to and fro, and it used to make too much noise before machine getting boot. And then I informed him that it's a virus problem and it's nothing to do with hardware, so you shouldn't be worried about it. But then he said, customers expect a hardware guy to solve the software problem. And that's where it began actually. And so I started writing tools to clean individual viruses in those days. The first virus I handled was Michelangelo, because at that time it was very hot. And then I also did older virus solutions and then earlier. But it was like a hobby initially. Then those tools started helping him in his maintaining good customer relations, getting customer problems solved, even though it's a virus problem. And that's how it became important for him. And then for me, after doing BCSI and doing masters, I was looking for placement and all that. But then he thought, so you have written so many tools for me, can you create a product out of that, make it a single product? And that's where I thought, okay. And he said, let's try this venture. And so I focused on creating a complete product out of that antivirus product. And it was a DOS operating system, so command line product. First version quickly was released around 94, 95. That's how we started. And it was still something interesting for me, and I continued. But then as we started getting traction, as we started solving bigger challenges, and we also faced a lot of competition and all that, but those were the business challenges. But definitely it was just because I had quite a good interest in this reverse engineering, tracking the threats and dealing with them. But as internet and everything started picking up in India, the problem really grew like anything. Like means it was all over, and we used to see earlier like couple of viruses per week. Then we started seeing couple of 100 viruses per month, and all that count has like exponentially boomed. And we really got very busy, and we really also got good attention from customers and started getting paid. It took us to sell our first copy after 2 years, I'll say, but that really started becoming good business for us after 98 actually.
So I was going to ask you a question. Give us a sense of what kind of, when you say attacks per day, per week, per month.
So yeah, so I said that was hundreds that time, but now it is around 4.5 to 5 lakh new malwares per day that we handle, and that's what we get.
5 lakh
Yeah,
per day.
per day.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the volume that currently we are dealing, and this is growing like anything because we have to cover all the platforms, all the OSs, and of course the globe is the customer. So we have to make sure we are detecting everything that is seen across the globe. So that's the volume, and now it is all automated. It's impossible to handle each threat. And why there are so many threats? Because there are so many automated tools available out there for all the amateur hackers to just use those tools, create the attack, and whatever they can find the wherever weakest victims, as we just discussed. There are so many out there who are not having proper protection, and they just use those tools. So for all the automated threats, detections are also automated. It's like almost.
So it's a continuous chore police race kind of thing.
It's always, yeah.
Okay.
Day and night, 24/7, I'll say.
Okay. Sridhar, I'll come to you. Again, from your background in research to academics to persistent GS Labs, Keypoint, and now tell us about this latest thing in terms of IIT Bombay Trust Lab. You're one of the co-founders, chief owners there. Tell us what is Trust Lab and how did you get into this field?
Sure, I'll do that, Advait. So I'll start with a question for everyone. Please don't look up your mobile. But if someone can explain to me what the word trust means, Thank you, but that's a very security specific answer. I'm looking for meaning of the word trust. Okay. Okay,
Which not goes
that's much better. Close.
which not goes fail.
Sorry?
Which not goes that will not goes fail. It's trust. It doesn't fail.
Okay.
Whatever you are saying, that is true.
Blindly believing.
Believing
Yeah, so you see, I'm starting to get many different answers. And they're all pretty much accurate from the concept of trust the person has. Okay? And it only reflects the reality. Trust is not yet defined in the world we live in. In the digital world we live in, no one knows what trust is. But the sentiment behind the word trust is, I have a sincere belief when I say I trust you. I have a belief that you will meet my expectation every time. That's what trust means. It's the English language meaning. But no one knows what it really is in the digital world. So we thought of doing something about it. The genesis of the concept, and I have the privilege of being the founding donor and conceptualizer for this IIT Bombay Trust Lab, where the concept came about back in early 2022. Okay, the Ukraine-Russia war had broken out. And soon after that, the US government told the American MNCs not to service their customers in Russia. Pretty much the opposite of what he mentioned. Now they have disallowed a Russian company to sell in the US. In this case, they disallowed an American company to be of use to Russians because that was the enemy. And in the constantly evolving geopolitical situation, it was very clear that, the more dependent we become on the digital world, more independent we need to become in running the digital world. And we are not at all independent. We almost use everything that is made somewhere else. But if we are going to depend on paying our Kirana store via something that somebody else gives us, some layers are of course ours, but all of them are not, then our daily life can get handicapped. Our institutions can get handicapped. So there was a desire to do something ground up. And since I'm from the institute, I thought, why not work with the people I already know and begin not just research, but development as well as community building related to digital trust at IIT Bombay. It's a long-term project, and that's how it began.
So, maybe I go to Alok. So, when we say vulnerability, because that's another word that came up when we are looking at, what does that mean from a digital perspective?
From a digital perspective, a vulnerability is a flaw in the software that somebody can take advantage of to use it in a manner that is not intended to be used for.
Okay.
That is the simplest explanation.
Okay. Like what happened today? Because there is a flaw in the software update.
Process. We hear this कि hack हो गया, ये हो गया, website पे डाला कुछ तो. Because the website is coded incorrectly, allowing for certain input to be given, certain specially crafted input to be given in a manner that the web server doesn't know what to do with it. It has like a brain freeze. And then it spits out the entire error code to it. So error code mein things get revealed out. So this is how a vulnerability can be exploited. To be put it more simply, you've heard these attacks where user data is exposed. How does it get exposed? Because you give it some input, because the website is not coded properly. Maybe some field is supposed to attract only numbers, but then you allow alphabets to go in. That can cause certain attacks. That's one way to look at a vulnerability. It is basically a flaw that somebody exploits for their personal gain.
So does it mean it is some programming
That is one of the issues. It can be a programming error, it can be a misconfiguration, it can be a business logic flaw.
So when such things happen, is the business to blame, the vendor to blame, internal IT to blame?
I would say it is shared responsibility model. Everyone is to blame.
But primarily, whose neck is on the line? That's what I'm asking.
See, where does the buck stop? Wherever the business leader says the buck stop, that's whose head is on the line.
And Rohit, coming to you, in your own experience, coming back to vulnerability, how do corporates sort of ensure that they don't get into this situation?
The biggest strategy a lot of corporates use today is called as hope. They just hope that it will not be exploited by someone. And that's why we said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And hope is not a strategy. So people think that, oh, we are so small, why would someone attack us? We have nothing to lose. Even if somebody takes it, it's okay, we are fine. But that's not what it happens. People who are serious about stuff, they take care of it from the whole people, process, technology, all PPT taken care from the ground up. And once you start doing that, basically it's a fight where you don't have to be the fastest runner. You don't have to be the slowest one. So when a bear is chasing you, you don't have to be the fastest in the front slot who can run away. Even if you're just second last, it is fine, because most of the attacks, even Sanjay would say, is a fire and forget type of attack. Let's see who all get damaged and then we will start looking at that. But if you are in a way increasing the ROI for an attacker, they would attack you. But if you're making it difficult, the ROI is going down for an attacker. Then say, okay, this guy is safe. Let's move on to the next. Let's not waste time here. And that's how people or businesses start improvising themselves.
Sanjay, you made a very interesting comment about hot virus. What is hot virus? Most popular or most damaging? And how do you sort of classify that in your departments?
So we classify the way how much telemetry we are seeing about the infections actually. So it's all about what we have observed is which vulnerability they are targeting to infect the computers, and if that patch is available but then people have still not implemented, kind of thing. So most of the vulnerabilities that these threats are using, the patches are already available out there. But the problem is nobody has taken pains to fix those, apply those patches. And it's not like I'll completely say their fault. It's like complexity of applying patches is more bigger reason, because there are multiple software having third-party libraries being used, and if somebody tries to patch it, it might break some functionality of the existing one more software, and then they don't want to break the functionality and overall stop the functioning of the whole thing. So because of that, as you rightly said, they just hope that nobody comes out and fix that vulnerability. Instead, they just try to overcome that by configuring the firewall in a different way, or trying to make sure the traffic doesn't reaches there or whatever. But of course, solutions are there. They just need to take the pain, take some time out and fix it. So
that's like band-aid on top of band-aid on top of band-aid. People leave their security environment that.
Also to expand upon his thing, it is also the fear that his IT admins have. कुछ चल रहा है ना, चलने दो उसको. Because if something breaks, I'll be the one fixing it, and it'll be then my head on the line, as you asked earlier.
To use this analogy, Bandit is working in the short run, ready for it. But Sridhar, you mentioned your Trust Lab project, you mentioned it as a long-term project. What is long-term and what exactly do you want to achieve?
So long term, because this is a continuous process, because the digital world is the new front for progress as well as competition and war, as we see, right? So you might have heard governments of certain countries supporting teams of hackers to find vulnerabilities that you just talked about in their not so friendly countries and get paid in the process. And once they find a vulnerability, they will tell the company whose software has the vulnerability as a bug that they have found. And so they get paid for the bug bounty also. So they first get paid by their government, they have a lead time, then they tell the company, and so on and so forth. And this is so sophisticated that if the biggest operating system vendor in the world releases a patch, the vulnerabilities in that patch are known to these teams within 24 hours. So it's a very, very brutal space. And going back to becoming independent in our digital world, there is a lot of catching up that this place has to do. And therefore it becomes a long-term project. And the idea is to actually be at the cutting edge in all layers of the software stack, as well as, to use their term, the process stack as well. Because you may have all the technical tools, but when you actually get hit by something, you not only need the technical competence, but you need tremendous process competence to actually deal with it. Because when panic sets in, the tools are not going to do anything, the people have to do something. So there is a very strong angle of getting people trained in being able to deal with this stuff.
So between people, process, technology, in your mind, what is the hierarchy?
It's always people.
Always people. People are coming to you, you know, there's this vulnerability kind of thing happen. You're saying that, okay, people come first. But how do you now, thanks to COVID, people are still, this is hybrid environment, work from home, etc., remote working. What implications enterprise security has, especially when people are working from home, as well as hopefully much more secure environment in a corporate organization?
See, at least when you are remotely working, you are connected to unknown networks or networks that are outside the control of your IT admin. Your home network, coffee shop, airport. और किधर होते हैं Wi-Fi? इधर, right? Co-working spaces. Anywhere, even LAN cable, for example. That is one threat. Then there are multiple vectors like this where somebody else uses the device. अब लैपटॉप तो ऑफिस से घर लेके गए, and as you see in COVID, बच्चे को नेटफ्लिक्स देखना है, हाँ क्लास अटेंड करनी है, नेटफ्लिक्स देखना है, हाँ और किसी और को शॉपिंग करनी है. So there are so many vectors that you visit the wrong website. People want to अच्छा डील मिल गया, click on the link, go there, malware डाउनलोड हो गया. This has happened, right? And if somebody really wants to steal data, they can take the laptop, turn it off, remove the hard drive, copy the data, and put it back in. There is no way any software can figure it out. So many controls, it's like, you have got a house with 10,000 windows. Figure out which one you want to block first, and then the expense required to block each of the windows is different. So the entire strategy plays into that then. So from a hybrid standpoint, then you have various methods to make it work. Like you have to put in some software to control that device, lock that device.
But in your experience, were corporates ready?
Some of them were, some of them were not.
Those first few months?
So I'll just add one line to that problem statement, which will be very relatable. Husband and wife working in two different companies, say TCS and Infosys, both competing company. Now they are working from one network, which is home network. So your competitor is already in your network. That kind of a situation comes. And I'll add one more example to that. Many a school moved out to Microsoft Teams. School email account is provided. You have to log on to Teams using the school email ID. School email ID is maintained by one administrator maintaining the school server. He may or may not be really very smart in maintaining it. There's just one checkbox. When you log on to the Teams, there's one checkbox which says, on Windows machine, allow the administrator of this account to manage your computer. Suddenly, by not unchecking it, you have allowed the administrator of the school to manage your MNC's network. And this is just one checkbox. All you have to do is uncheck it.
Default is checked.
By default, it is checked. But that's the situation we end up in. And who reads every line? we always look for that bold button which says next or complete or finish. So that's where the problem comes in, and we have seen this kind of a problem happening. Companies, not everyone was ready with it. A lot of it actually happened on the fly. It's like intern coming to office and then learning on the job, they're doing it. A lot of companies went through that. There were a bunch of companies who were mature in their security setup, and they had to do less of an effort to go work from home from day one. But then there was someone like, and they think that they are not hacked yet, they are not breached yet, the data is not stolen yet, but that's what they think, it might have already been done. So we call it as two types. There are two types of company, one who has already been breached and one who will be. And either you know about it, or even in breach there are two types of, you know that you have been breached and you don't know what you have been breached.
Blissful ignorance.
Blissful ignorance.
Sanjay, in this COVID times, did you see jump in your revenues? Did you see 4.5 lakh, 5 lakh per day, you said? Did that sort of go up when people started working remote?
Yeah, there was quite a big jump because many, I don't know, because of all people now going online, because those who were not even using computers started using, like teachers, say, like everybody started using that, and so the attack vector increased, and that's where the attacks started happening. And we did saw a jump in our sales as well, but at the same time, number of threats and the kind of different attacks started seeing. We started seeing them actually.
It's like a gold mine for.
Yeah, it's like means when we were in the corporate network, everything was bottleneck through one thing where we had full control of security and all that, but all that was gone. Now everybody working from anywhere, and no policy was implemented because policies cannot work for remoting at that time. That was the situation, and what we have seen is people started buying more VPN channels so that they can start giving the secure channel to the organization. Those who had that kind of firewall capabilities were able to manage that, but many of them were just using the phone, and Zoom is something that were like more vulnerable and got attacked.
How did you manage your remote working people? I mean, did you also come under? Because now everybody.
Yeah. And so it was a pressure, but we being into security, we knew what is important, because work from home culture was already there, but suddenly the percentage of people working from home changed suddenly, and like majority of them started working from home, and so we had to upgrade our firewall to the level where we can support all of them from remote. The only challenge for us was to make sure how we keep our virus lab running, because all the threads and all was getting downloaded at one place, and we have to make sure that functions. So we have to get the special permission from corporations to make our people allow them to go to the lab and do that. So at least for a couple of days we were impacted, but we could manage after that.
So like go on to next.
Adit, before we go ahead, I'll just give one anecdotal situation here. 5 lakh new unique viruses coming on an average on a daily basis. All of them getting downloaded into a gold mine in this office. For a regular attacker, think of the kind of access that person would have if he get access to those 5 lakh. Presuming 99% of that would be fixed by all other antivirus, but there could be just 1% of that 5 lakh viruses can create havoc across the globe. So that kind of gold mine on which they're sitting, and the kind of protection they have to do to make sure that it is not getting leaked out from here.
And that 1% is added every day.
Every day on a daily.
Any questions from? Yeah. How safe is this?
Okay, that's the answer is there in my previous book. No, but jokes apart, there are two types of cybersecurity problem we are looking at: B2B and B2C. This is falling into the B2C domain. Phones, which phone is that? Do you have an antivirus on that phone? You got the answer. Every Android phone must have an antivirus installed on top of it, right? That's given for sure. If you do not have it, it is not secure. And then this security comes in from two sides: attack versus privacy point of view. is the privacy getting leaked out from those devices and all?
More of a like scam is getting added to that because phone is being more vulnerable towards scams, especially these financial scams, loan apps, or even any way nowadays. Yeah, share trading applications, remote support applications, all these are being used to get access to your phone. And once they have full access to your phone, that's the sad part of your thing is once the malware is installed, they have full access to your phone, and you not knowing anything about that, somebody is completely watching your screens. And then whatever you do, any transaction you do, he can read your OTP, he can read your bank statements, and then take further steps to move it to somewhere else. So,
But does that mean we should use cyber? Since you asked that, right?
yeah, but but the point is, the fact is, the ecosystem on the iOS front is much better. The reason is the App Store itself is very stringent in selecting apps, and Android is quite open and it is automated. There's no human intervention. So many a time it gets breached. We have to like, if you see monthly, at least few thousand apps are removed by Android App Store to make sure that they are not infecting again. And those few thousand apps are reported by vendors like us. We report regularly. All other security vendors report whatever they come across, and we have to. So that's the thing. So Android doesn't come to know that the malicious app is on their store because it's all automated.
Actually, I would like to continue the person who asked the question, like, is it phone safe? The question was really good. My query is like, why do we even need an antivirus? And let's just suppose we do. This antivirus is going to scan all the viruses. Let's just suppose if they come in Android. But how do we trust that? Because if it is going to detect the viruses, we will have to grant it admin permission, right? Now we have just moved the power back to antivirus.
How do you trust
How
antivirus?
do we trust an antivirus?
So
But
first of all, even though he said antivirus, it's more than antivirus. We say mobile security because it's not only about viruses. It's about, as we rightly said, it's along with the threats. It's all about scams as well. Now your next point about giving full control to the security, I mean this app. The fact is, Android or Google ecosystem doesn't do that, and that's where the problem is. I'll say because security applications like us, like we have a mobile security application. If we install it on Android, we need to have to see have the privilege to see all the other applications, what they are doing or where they are connecting. But that is not given to us, and it's not possible. Even that's the reason why mobile security applications are not that effective as they are effective on PCs. Actually, the reason is. Yeah, you don't get it actually. No application is given. Android doesn't give that actually, unless means you jailbreak the phone actually or root that phone.
This gentleman is making a big point. I think just as we don't outsource our physical security to somebody else, and we do sometimes, but we shouldn't. Similarly, we should not outsource the security and privacy of our devices to somebody else, namely the antivirus provider. Sorry. Huh? In the end, if it is not going to be safe to do mobile banking from your phone, don't do it. If you have to be careful about what you will run on your phone, be careful. No, it's as simple as that.
There are advantages with this approach of Android to not to give access to that. So disadvantages for us because we are not able to scan. But then disadvantage on one front is that if at all the person by mistake visits something or does something that installs a root, the application that takes root access. Because see, for us there are rules. We cannot put our application on Android store unless we follow all the rules that Android gives us. But for a malicious application, they don't follow rules because they don't go through Android store. They go directly by different ways into your phone. And once they are installed, they are above us. So we are not able to scan them. We are not able to protect the user. User is not able to see that application at all. And I'll tell you, there are so many applications on the phone that are not even visible at all. Even pre-installed coming in the phone through any other vendors, as well, and we don't really know what that applications are doing, and that applications are sending data across different servers in the different countries actually, and that's what being pointed by a lot of security experts to the government as well, and that's why certain applications or certain phones are also banned in certain countries because they are not sharing why the data is being shared. So
But Sanjay, a lot of people do access their office mail on phone.
yeah.
So does that make them vulnerable for this? Yes.
And that's where, at least on the B2B, this comes to B2B, and B2B is quite, I'll say, progressive with respect to putting these measures. At least there are,
But B2B on my phone.
yeah, B2B on the phone. Because they are creating a separate workspace on your phone where your personal and your work is separated, segregated. You are not able to save anything from the email to your phone or anything from your phone's library to your thing, because that is segregated. That solutions are available. I don't know. Not all applications, not all organizations are installing, but those who are really serious about security and having a lot of information on phone, they do implement, because we do have that solution and people are using them actually. So to make sure that the phone, if it is used for personal thing, because it is BYOD, the segregation is there. So it's completely different sandbox inside the phone.
Before going there, I'll just have one line for you. The question is whom you trust and how much you trust. Are you trusting the antivirus company, or are you trusting that random ad which has come into an application which is asking you to install something, or that random APK file given you on WhatsApp by an unknown number saying MNGL bill yahan pe karna hai? Who you trust and how much you trust will always remain the crucial for any security.
But I'm sorry for interrupting. Wouldn't it be like also like an, what do we say, educational issue? Like if we are being aware, because if someone we install the app, shouldn't we be like educated that you shouldn't just install any app? And even if you do, there are permissions in the Android.
We kind of touched that before you walked in. We said that knowledge is the first line of defense.
Sorry for
Hey, don't worry.
Sir, I have same question like you said. When any devices, safety is must. Trust on the platform which we are giving the all access. It's absolutely important. My question, sir, like, what if the data breaches somehow, or access any threat occurs?
So what happens if data breach but there is no ransom?
Not ransomware.
But what to do after that?
Yes, and my question is like, what is
So what is the question? What do we do?
yes, and how is
What do we do? How do we come out?
There is a website called, just Google search HIBP. Have I been pawned? So this website basically, you enter your email address and see if your email address shows up in any breach. This is like you can do this as homework today. Take your, go to this website, HIBP, and enter your email address. Anyone. It's safe to enter email addresses here. It's developed by a security researcher himself. He maintains a list of all breaches and all those things. So you can enter your email address here and check if this email address is present in any breaches. Then you know. For example, if I enter mine, it'll probably show up in some, Pizza Hut, Domino's, yeah. Plenty. Financial, yeah. Canva, LinkedIn.
You need to know that there has been a breach. Then only you can start thinking what I would do after this.
sir, like, sir, that was not my, sir. My query is like, how it get insured, like digital insurance.
You cannot. Unless until you know about it, you cannot. So the first, and that goes into the B2B domain only. Also, that unless you know what you are protecting, you will not be able to do. So know your attack surface, know your area of exposure, and then you can start protecting.
So this happens even at the B2B level and B2C level also. You have to know what is in your, you can't protect something that you don't know. Now, I don't know what is in his pocket, but if I knew, then I know exactly kahan pe hai, kidhar hai, and how much protection is needed. Right? Same thing with the corporate environment also. I need to know how many endpoints are there, how many servers are there, how many Wi-Fi routers are there, who takes the laptop home, who doesn't take the laptop home, who is at the executive level, who is not at the executive level. Plenty of factors are there.
Sir, what if someone entered and
Yeah.
General knowledge question. Okay, China has their own cyber world. Does it mean that China is impermeable for us? Because Mr. Shukla mentioned that there are organized gangs or companies or whatever whose business is to break or do hacking and whatnot for not so friendly nations, as you mentioned. So is China something like this? They are protected so much?
I don't know, sir.
Nobody knows about China.
We don't hear.
Yeah.
We don't hear about attacks in China.
Yogesh?
I had on a question on a topic that is not being covered. I wanted to know whether you are seeing use of AI technologies both by the attackers and are they being used by the defenders?
Yes, yes.
Could you comment on that?
There are technologies now, thanks to AI. AI is not just chat GPT anymore. It is chat attack also. So there are automated tools. There were anyways automated tools available like to create viruses. There are tools available to create malware. Similarly, there are tools now available to bypass these malware detection schemes. That is AI based. So you create something and it will not be detectable. So AI is there
Is it
for all the good reasons and the bad reasons.
is it being used by the defenders also?
Yes, yes. A lot. Every product you see now, AI based this and AI based that. Everything is AI based.
No, but sometimes it's just advertising. And one doesn't know AI is there.
I've been knowing, I knew Quick Heal had an AI-enabled platform since 2018 or 19. They have never publicized it publicly. But yes, a lot of companies are using AI methodologies, the machine learning, the deep learning, to automate a lot of tasks. So it's there on both positive and negative fronts.
That Tom and Jerry game will not exist. Will not stop.
So this is not directly related, but just to give you an idea of what this community is. One of the gentlemen who has been for decades in this area told me that there would be about 1,000 people in the world who are these Mauchele hackers. They are from very different communities. They are not necessarily from one country, but they all know each other and they work to impress each other. Right? And to break into something is like getting an award. Right? So I think bragging rights, I did this, you couldn't do it. So what technology they use, no one knows. So whether they are using this or not, this is only for publicly released information. But chances are they are very advanced. Just like the gamers, attackers and defenders are very advanced and they don't publish.
One question I have, we talked about remote, we talked about AI now. What about cloud? Is it secure?
Cloud is as secure as much as you pay for it.
So
No, it's on AWS, it's on Azure, so I'm secure.
one common line there is, इतने पैसे में इतना ही मिलेगा.
Correct.
The more you pay, the
The more
more secure you
secure.
add, the more sweeter it becomes.
See, well, technically speaking, there's this thing of shared responsibility model. They give you the infra. If you buy a flat, right? Builder flat देता है, सब देता है. Now it is your responsibility to put a lock on the gate. Right? Now, you cannot then claim the builder कि मेरे घर में चोर घुसा है. Who told you not to put a lock on the gate? So if you look at the multi-layer security approach, there is to get to your safe in your house. I have to first cross that, MyGate application or whatever. Sir, naam likh ke do, emails likh ke do, Aadhaar card, PAN card, everything they take these days. Then you cross inside. Then you come inside to some other your wing. कौन सा है? वहाँ पे भी समझ कहाँ जाने का है? अच्छा ठीक है, ऊपर जाओ. Then you come to your house. Then there'll be a gate over there. There'll be a metal gate. Then there'll be the wooden door. So 2 gates. Then you'll, depending on whether you recognize me or not, you'll allow me into your house. Right? Then depending on how familiar you are with me, you'll allow me to either sit in your living room or come to your kitchen or come to your bedroom. Depending on the relationship with you, you let me then, बिंदास आके हाँ कबर्ड खोल लिया हाँ क्या अंदर है. Right? So is that level of trust that matters?
So just because I have one thing on cloud is
No. So because again, think of it from their perspective, they are providing a lot of computing resource, a lot of systems which has to work for everyone. So they have given something. Now, every time they add a layer of security, there is a cost to that company. So they would want that cost from you. So now, if the business leader is not aware of it and say, cloud ho to gaya, why do I need to spend more on security? That's where the missing piece comes in. That's where the gaps comes in, and that's where to go ahead. See, taking your car, driving to Mumbai is your PC, your server. Going in a taxi is the cloud environment where the shared source and everybody is using. In a taxi, can you go very safely without wearing the rear seat belt? No, you have to wear it, right? That knowledge has to come in. So again, I was in a good quality taxi bike. How can I get hit by an accident? No, you have to do all of that. And for that, knowing that these functionalities are available and knowing that just by going on to cloud doesn't make secure by default is important.
One last question. Yeah,
See, I watched your interview with Naveen Kabra.
Doomsday?
Naveen, Future, right?
I was separate for
Doomsday.
Even, how not to get hacked or whatever. There you spoke about authenticators, which are not Google and Microsoft. You also spoke about password managers, but you never mentioned the name. Have you mentioned those names in 2019? Have you mentioned those names? Which password manager, like LastPass or whatever, or which authenticator other than Google and Microsoft one can use? Okay, you have not answered those questions in the interview. Have you provided those answers in the book?
There is a reason why it is not mentioned on the video podcast because one algorithm level problem. YouTube says that this is a sponsored content, so we do not say out names very clearly, but it's all okay. Even the password managers, even after the breach which has happened with LastPass, one of the very trusted password manager, I would still go ahead and recommend that.
But your 2019 book, does it mention all of this?
It doesn't mention the name. It doesn't mention the name. Yeah.
One more thing. When you reboot or do factory reset, okay, you suspect that there is some problem. Do factory reboot or do whatever. Does it help?
To a large extent. To a large extent. But there is a malware which Sanjay would know much better called as the bootkit, which sits on your system before your system even boots. So it goes once, even if you reformat and everything, the next installation, the virus will come along with it.
Does iPhone have antivirus software?
No.
Nowhere in the
And yeah, they don't allow.
They don't even.
And at the same time, as he said, the thing goes well with PCs as well as Android phones. There are threats that even survive your factory boot, and we are not able to clean them.
Even iPhone.
No, I am talking about Android.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, running out of time, so one last comment I want to make or request to all of you is that I think all of us are sufficiently terrified now of even using our whatever. Is there any hopeful sentence that you can end the
I'll only say that, see,
Why Android is not picking up those things?
no, they are, I mean, see, their focus is completely different. And so people expect everything to be done by Android. The thing is, their focus is different. They are into a different business. And so for them, of course, this is business hampering activity, but they'll try to add protection layers to the Android store or whatever OS. But then we should not forget that whatever layers they will add, as soon as it is released, these hackers will start penetrating, understanding them, and then overcome them and come out with the newer threats that will circumvent and go inside. So this is ongoing race, as we always had been saying. So it is something that dedicated security has to be there. Unless it is there, means it's not going to happen. And so the good news I'll say is that, see, hackers or ransomware, and then nowadays everything we are seeing, I have observed that most of the attacks are now more focused towards enterprises or businesses rather than individuals. But individuals are now facing a new challenge about scams, which you see if you open the newspaper now, you'll see at least 3-4 news on the front page which talks about somebody getting scammed, and these scam amounts are growing like anything. Now earlier it used to be like few thousand, now it is lakhs and some crores as well. And it's in between there was a big scam on these trading apps, and now I have seen in last week this has been moved to like traffic challans, and it's all been operated by cyber criminals out of the country. Like we know where it is operating, from where it is happening, but nobody is doing anything to stop that actually.
Does eSIM solve the cloning problem? Physical SIM? No. eSIM can be cloned? Yes. My God.
So the ray of hope.
Some sentence of hope last.
Yeah, so the ray of hope is there is good business. Okay, that's one. There is good business in security. So there are companies who are doing and taking effort to make things secure. So buy the security stocks, that's a good option to do. And beyond that, there are efforts being taken. If you put your effort on the right direction, that okay, let me be aware, let me get rid of the greed part of it, suddenly your security posture improves. So if that minor change can happen from end user perspective, that good change can happen from the business leader perspective, that okay, security is a serious problem and it is a solvable problem. Let me take a structured approach, which we tried adding into the book. Then the good news is we can elevate our posture.
Make it difficult for
The attack.
That's the only plan.
Half the stuff is basically, yeah, just ray of hope. Yeah. Half the stuff is use common sense because common sense is highly uncommon.
Is OTP safe?
We will come to that.
Final statement from you. Closing statement.
I would say technology is good. It's useful. Use it at your own risk.
Thank you so much. Big round of applause for all our panelists.
Good. Have you recorded this?
Yes, I think it's being recorded. So on behalf of all of us, Sridhar, thank you so much for your time.
So your company is based in Pune?
Yes, this is from our gift sponsor called a fragrance story, a Pune-based perfumery. Yes. You. Give us a and from
आज तो गिफ्ट की बरसात है.
आज डबल है.
this is double presented which you are all the way.
I should have been a panelist. That's a good one.
So again, we have to thank our sponsors for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again to all four of you, including the author, co-author, and our panelists for taking time out here. Thank you everyone for deciding to spend your Friday evening 90 odd minutes here. So thank you once again. Have a good evening. Our next session is scheduled on 23rd.
3rd of August.
Time out.
It's for people who are on my LinkedIn or on my WhatsApp community, you will come to know. But 23rd August evening, please block your date. Thank you and good evening. Thank you again.